When we talk about power and privilege, we usually think about money or opportunity. But what if the real difference is way deeper than that? What if having power, or not having it, actually physically rewires your brain? Well, we're about to dive into the neuroscience that suggests it's not just possible, it's happening all around us right now.
So let's just start with the big question right up front. Can privilege literally change your brain? Can it actually reach in and alter your neural pathways? Well, the science we're about to look at suggests the answer is a pretty resounding yes.
And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. Take a look at Oxford. 40% of its students come from private schools, even though only 7% of the whole country goes to them. It's the same story at places like Yale, which has more students from the top 1% than from the entire bottom 50%. This isn't a broken system, you see. It's a system working exactly the way it was designed to. So how on earth is this gap built and maintained? Well, it's all driven by what you might call the meritocracy engine. We're often told it's all about fairness, but there's a huge piece of the puzzle that almost always gets left out. We're all told this simple, really appealing story, right? If you've got talent and you put in the effort, you will be successful. It sounds great. It's the heart of the whole meritocracy idea, but it's an incomplete picture. Because the real equation, the one that's actually running the show, has a third variable. Success in this system isn't just talent plus effort. No, it's talent plus effort plus massive sustained investment. And that investment, it makes all the difference. Just look at the US elite private schools are spending over $75,000 on each student every year. The average public school, it's spending around $12,000. That's not a gap, that's a chasm, and it creates these enormous disparities right from the start. And so this is the logical outcome. As Yale professor Daniel Markovits puts it, because rich parents can invest so much more in their kids, meritocratic children are also rich children. The system, working as designed, just locks in that advantage.
Okay, so that's the societal gap. But now we're going to go deeper. What does all of this actually feel like on a neurological level? Let's start with the brain on powerlessness, which is a brain that's basically shaped by never-ending stress.
See, this state of powerlessness, it's not just in your head. It's a physical burden. It creates constant stress, and that trains your body to be on high alert 24/7. This isn't just a feeling. It's a real biological state that fundamentally undermines your ability to be productive and, just be happy. So the key idea behind all of this is something called body budgeting. The best way to think about it is like this. Your brain is the CFO of your body's energy. It's constantly making deposits, like food and sleep, and withdrawals, like exercise or dealing with stress. Its number one job is to predict what your body's going to need next and to make sure the budget balances. But for someone without power, that body budget is just constantly running in the red. Worrying about food, feeling invisible, not being heard, these are huge ongoing withdrawals. As researcher Suzanne Allain says so powerfully, this experience can grind away at your very sense of self.
All right, so now let's flip the coin. What happens to a brain that has power? Well, it's not dealing with all that stress. Instead, it's developing a whole different set of issues, cognitive blind spots.
And here's the really crucial part. Privilege isn't just about the stuff you have on the outside. It actively rewires your brain on the inside. This happens through a process called neuroplasticity, which is just the brain's incredible ability to physically change and adapt based on its experiences. So over time, the patterns of a privileged life create real structural changes in the brain. There's this classic experiment from UC Berkeley that just shows this perfectly. They rigged a game of Monopoly, giving one player a huge, totally unfair advantage. And within minutes, you can see their behavior change. They get louder, they start slamming their piece on the board, they act more entitled. And the best part? After they inevitably win, they talk about how great their strategy was, totally ignoring the fact that the whole game was rigged in their favor.
So what this game really shows us is a whole set of cognitive biases that power just amps up. You get that biased self-attribution, just like in the game. You get an internalized sense of superiority. Your thinking becomes more egocentric, focused on your own needs. And, maybe most important of all, you develop a measurable empathy deficit.
And guess what? That empathy deficit, it ties right back to our old friend, body budgeting. See, trying to empathize with someone, especially someone whose life is totally different from yours, takes energy.
It's a really costly prediction for the brain to make. So a brain that's used to having power just becomes less willing to spend those precious resources trying to understand the struggles of people it sees as unfamiliar.
So when you put it all together, you get this. Two totally distinct neurological realities created by the very same social structure. On one side, you've got a world of perpetual stress, a body budget that's always in deficit, and a sense of self that's just getting ground away. And on the other, a world of reduced empathy, a body budget with a surplus, and this deep internalized sense of superiority. Okay, so what does all this actually mean in the real world? What are the consequences of this neurological divide? When these two different brains collide, what's the societal impact?
There's a quote that just nails this trade-off perfectly. The brain changes that come with privilege are, in a way, adaptive. They wire the brain for success within that powerful system. But in doing so, they can also wire it against people who don't have power. And you can see how this plays out on a massive scale. When leaders have this empathy deficit hardwired into their thinking, they can become completely insulated. They become blind to the very real human suffering their decisions might cause, not necessarily because they're bad people, but because their brains literally struggle to process it.
And this leads us to this really powerful, kind of counterintuitive idea from Susanna Lane. Privilege isn't just an advantage. In a really crucial way, it's also a handicap. It can blind you, it can limit your perspective, and it can cut you off from the full spectrum of what it means to be human. And so, that leaves us with one last, really big question for all of us to think about. If we know for a fact that power creates these neurological blind spots, how do we build systems that can actually see? How do we design our institutions to compensate for the fact that the powerful, by the very nature of how their brains are wired, might struggle to see the whole picture?